This safe contains evidence of the code Ian Brady used to record where he buried the victims of the Moors murders. Undercover detectives from Greater Manchester Police have come to see whether it can help them finally close the case. In 1966, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley were sentenced to life after police found the body of 17-year-old Edward Evans at their house in Manchester. 2 other victims were found on Saddleworth Moor: a 10-year-old girl called Leslie Ann Downey and a 12-year-old boy called John Kilbride. It was to be another 20 years before the body of 16-year-old Pauline Reed was recovered. 12-year-old Keith Bennett has never been found. Ian Brady's psychiatrist says the location of this grave is a secret the Moors murderer will never surrender.
I know, you don't know, you want to know, and I'm not going to tell you.
It's Myra. All I want to say to you is that I've gotten your letter, thank you very much, and the envelopes. And I'll be starting the next episode later on today and get them off to you early in the week.
I first spoke to Myra Hindley in 1998, when I asked her to write an account of her role in the Moors murders for a BBC documentary. I began examining the case because her legal challenge to the ruling that she should die behind bars had reached the Court of Appeal. The 150,000 words she wrote to me stand as the only first-hand account of the Moors murders. After the film went out, I agreed with Keith Bennett's family to continue to question her about where he was buried. It took months of persuasion before she agreed to help. She told me that while the other children were buried on the exposed wasteland of Hollin Brown Knoll, Keith Bennett was driven to a lay-by at the head of Hoe Grain Stream. From there, he'd been walked onto the moor, strangled, and buried in a peat gully on the banks of Shiny Brook. She sent me a detailed series of maps, which have been used by forensic archaeologists, Professor John Hunter and retired Detective Chief Superintendent Barry Simpson, to narrow down the search area. But Myra Hindley's efforts to persuade people that she was reformed and should be freed failed.
The Moors murderer Myra Hindley has died at the age of 60 in hospital in Suffolk. She was given the last rites yesterday. We're told that she died at 16:58 after respiratory failure. Her next of kin have been informed, and there'll be a coroner's inquest.
The death of Myra Hindley was celebrated in the national press, but Keith Bennett's family worried that the chance of finding his body may have died with her. His younger brother has spent decades searching for him.
It's like another door closed. And next I had a police officer, at my home here, and he sort of cast it aside and she's dying, so we exhausted that avenue anyway, it's a sort of thing. So I said, well, not really. I don't think we exhausted that avenue at all. If you're expecting me to jump for joy that she's dying, you know what? I'm not, it's... Because while she's alive, we've got a chance, whatever she... Now she's dead, whatever memory she had that we were trying to get at, she took with her.
But soon after Myra Hindley's funeral, I was given a large collection of her personal papers. They had lain unread in secret storage for years. There was a box in which I found her autobiography. It was never published because her supporters judged it damaging to her cause. There were more than a quarter of a century of letters Myra Hindley had written to her mother from prison. There were also nearly 200 photographs chronicling Ian Brady and Myra Hindley's relationship during the murders. Ian Brady believed these had been destroyed. The box contained everything from the insurance documents for the car she and Ian Brady used to abduct children to the gift he gave her on her 21st birthday. I let Greater Manchester Police and Alan Bennett know what I had.
It gives you something else to work with. You know, far from that avenue being closed, even though she's dead now. I mean, there's more stuff now than we've ever had before to work on, which is, you know, what we hope to do.
That's something that's got to be worked through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's by everybody, you know what I mean, including the police.
It took months to read and catalogue the unpublished autobiography, the letters to her mother, and all the new photographs. However, I was conscious that I might miss something. So I asked Ian Brady's former psychiatrist, Professor Malcolm McCulloch, who is editor of the British Journal of Forensic Psychiatry, to help me. How unusual is it to have a selection of material like this?
Almost without precedent, very rare, and in psychiatric cases, rare.
So how do you approach looking at something like this?
Well, first of all, is to read it in detail and to make notes, and also to look at the background that you already have or what you can get from other sources to see what fits. And then to look at what the content is and what it means, to look at the consistency of what is being said with what you know about the background.
Myra Hindley's words are read by an actress.
I was born on Thursday, July 23rd, 1942. And as I write this, I have just had my 46th birthday, and in less than 2 months' time, I will have spent as long in prison as out of it. So be it. Many people will be surprised to learn that I was born an innocent baby, just like every other baby is.
Even though there are inconsistencies and lies, nevertheless, it's virtually impossible to lie consistently. It has to be a judgment. You can't prove it either way. But certainly from reading it with the background I've got, it would seem that there are some things that come out which look true and which further our knowledge of what was going on.
At the centre of the autobiography lies Myra Hindley's relationship with her father. She hated him and portrayed him as a bully. This relationship appears to have helped mould her into a woman capable of carrying out the Moors murders.
My father wielded total parental control, and I rebelled against it and fought against it, all my life until I was old enough to free myself from it. All his attempts to control me, even the successful ones, were at a great cost, and as a result of bitter recriminations, and often a hard physical punishment.
One phrase that sticks in my mind about him beating her black and blue on the buttocks, and other phrases about him being aggressive, violent to her mother as well. And I think that's extremely important. It's well known that people who've been brutalised either emotionally or physically or sexually or combinations of all three develop abnormal personalities with elements of cruelty and sadism later on.
Myra Hindley was schooled in violence at a young age by her father. Once, when she was being picked on, he locked her out onto the street and told her to beat the bully or face a thrashing herself.
I set off up the street to meet my persecutor, and I quickly concentrated on the things Dad had told me and shown me. As Kenny's hands came up, I shot out my left hand, fist bunched towards his head. As I predicted, both hands went up to protect his face, and I lifted my right hand and slammed it into his tummy, hitting him hard. With a gasp, Kenny Holden's knees crumpled, and before he could recover, I slammed my left fist into the side of his head. Kenny was so totally shocked he sat down heavily on the floor and burst into tears. I stood looking down at him, triumphantly.